Hello, Planet Earth. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're at IDK, my BFF Jill730. I'm Preston L. Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations. You've made your way to the Buffington Post. Today I'll be continuing my Season 9 coverage of the Buffyverse with Willow Wonderland Part 5. Now, when I started my discussion of Willow Wonderland, I said that it was a story about loss, and it's not about the loss of magic, it's the loss of self. The self is a relation that relates itself to itself. And it's kind of like you're constantly going through your life and there are these two extremes of yourself. There's the part of you that knows what you know and draws on all of your experiences, and then there's this kind of finished part of yourself. And when you ask yourself questions, you're kind of asking that finished part of yourself that kind of understands more than you do now, and the relation between the two is who you are and what you do with that conversation that's being had between these two extremes, and that's where you find yourself, somewhere in the middle, in the choices, in what you do with this conversation. And this is a conversation that Willow is having with herself, right? We see Willow, and she starts out as this character who is not in control of her circumstances, of her life, and she goes throughout the series trying to change that and have some control over her life. And when we get to the extreme version of Willow, this dark Willow character, Alwyn talked about her being an attempt at total control, and what Willow kind of realized was that the only control that she could really have over her life when she's Dark Willow was to actually end it. That was the most control that she could have, is deciding when this life ends, and it drives her to suicide. Sure, she's going to destroy the whole world, but it's really about killing herself, about there not being anything left, and that sense of control of having at least this to say, I control this. And because of this, Willow's identity is so wrapped up in magic, and without magic, she feels like she is not herself, and it left her in this real state of depression when she was in San Francisco at the beginning of the season. And so that sense of loss and grief is really her mourning the loss of her sense of self.
How am I not myself?
How am I not myself? How am I not myself?
How am I not myself? How am I not myself?
And what we find in this issue is that her self is what she's been chasing, not magic. That's something, but first, previously on Willow Wonderland.
Willow, of course, has made it into this Wonderland-type world, and she met this cat named Marak, who was kind of following her around, and who's from our world, trying to get back as well. She came upon Alwyn, the Sagamasuki, her
Sexy snake lady.
who introduced her to this wonderful paradise of women who were in power and deciding things for themselves, and they helped Willow to repair the broken scythe, but that didn't do much help because there's no magic in our world, and so Willow was kind of content to just hang out in Wonderland. But Marak kind of snapped her out of that, and Willow came to the conclusion that she needed to keep trying to get to this place that she knows is real and bring that place back home. So she did some soul searching and got in touch with her dark side and accepted the fact that there's not a dark Willow and a light Willow, there's only Willow. And of course, right after she came to this realization that she should have come to way back in Season 7, Marak is revealed to actually be Rak, who survived the carnage at the end of Season 6.
And so without further ado, let's jump into Willow Wonderland Part 5, the conclusion. Here we go.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Billow and breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain and sun. All that was good, all that was fair, all that was me is gone. Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to
The issue opens up with Willow and Rack, and they're in this standoff, and basically Willow is saying, look, you thought I was the same stupid girl who came to you looking for magic, and you tried to get me to bring out my dark side, but it's not gonna work, dude. And at this point, we flash back to Season 6, where Amy had first introduced Rack to Willow. And we see the part where he calls her Strawberry, and this is a big deal. Strawberry is a kind of slang term used to describe someone who trades sex for drugs, and this is basically what Willow was doing with Rack, but it's important to look at this because we really just saw Willow doing this with Alwyn. Alwyn was like, hey, come and have sex with me and I'll keep you fueled up on magic all the time. And Rack says, yeah, that's right, you could have gone to any of the worlds in all of reality, but you came to the one that I was in because you still needed to get a fix, right? So that pisses Willow off, and while she's all angry and distracted, Rack grabs a scythe from her. He uses the scythe to open up the rift into this world that Willow's been trying to get into, this great body of magic. Willow says, that's enough, you've had your fun, I'm gonna need you to stop playing with my toys. And she starts really duking it out with Rack. She tells him that all he does is use and destroy, and he is the exact opposite of what magic should be, and it's at this point that Rack really lays it out to Willow, everything that is really true of this character, and I'm going to read it verbatim because it's very important. He says, oh, I'm the opposite of what magic should be? What's that? Ponies and rainbows? No, it's whatever Willow wants. You know, I may be scum, let's face it, I am, but you're a brat. You want what you want when you want it, and if you don't get it, people suffer. And the rules apply to everyone but you. You want to call PETA when I kill a monster, but when another one's about to mess up your precious quest, boom, it's giblets. You spend your life guarding a hellmouth, but when you lose your power, you decide to create a new one, and damn the consequences. And that quest of yours, it's the most important thing in history, till you run into a coven of horny witches who worship you and keep you juiced. All of a sudden, screw Earth, problem solved. And these are great things to tell Willow. They are really amazing things that she really needs to hear. Hello, Willow, you're really judgy, aren't you? But Willow has already come to these conclusions herself. Sure, she just came to them, but she understands that she was being selfish and she wasn't thinking about the big picture. And that's all fine, because now she's got her head screwed on straight and she's not gonna let Rack fuck with her head anymore. And Rack says he's going to tap into this power and give Willow a taste of it, but she says, you don't understand. Magic isn't something that you can just take. It's something that you earn, and once you do, it comes from everywhere. It comes from within you. She's like, see, I told you I wasn't same stupid, silly little Willow, and he says, oh, well, why are your eyes turning black, girl? And of course, Willow's insecurities get the better of her because her eyes weren't turning black, but she's so worried about this sense of control that she should have over herself, and Rack then attacks her, and they're kind of got each other on the ropes. So they fight their way into this world that Willow's been trying to get to for the past, whole season, hello. And he tells her that she's just fighting the truth, that she's denying the real her. She says, hello, stupid, it's all the real me, I'm Willow, fuck you. Rack talks about the caterpillar and how the caterpillar was right, that power is drawn from opposing forces, the light and the dark, and he's trying to use Willow to use those opposing forces to gain access to this world of this body of magic that they're in. But what he decides to do is just suck all of her power out and contain those opposing forces within himself and just to leave her for dead while he goes home with all the power. Now at this point, voices from within this body of magic start to all say, Rack, 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 Rack. And this body of magic kind of attacks at Rack, and it absorbs him because it is trying to get rid of it. And then the voices start saying, Willow, Willow, Willow. And Willow is worried, obviously, because Rack just got totally, absorbed into this thing. But the body that she's in tells her not to worry, that it doesn't mean her any harm, because Rack meant her harm, but clearly Willow does not. And Willow understands that she is in this embodiment of magic, and it's not the embodiment of magic because magic is too big a force to be expressed in even a whole universe. And basically it talks about being complex and how all things are complex, all living things, all of the seemingly imperfect things that are in any one thing, things that seem to contradict one another, what they really do is make the other more beautiful and really complement each other. And this magic body that Willow is in is telling Willow that she can't pick and choose which sides of herself are the good ones. They're all just sides of herself, and you can't just ascribe one thing to magic, because magic doesn't have a purpose. It simply is. And this connection between the physical and the spiritual is a real connection, and you can't have one without the other. They exist together, just like Light Willow and Dark Willow. There's Willow the Red existing in between those two extremes, and she says, this is what my world needs. You can't have the physical without the spiritual. And the magic body that she's in explains to her that you can't just bring magic to a place that doesn't have a heart. Like, that magic has to come from within. And Willow says that her world has lost its heart. But the magic explains to her that she has not. That she can actually be given a gift, and this is what it does. It gives Willow this magic within her heart, and Willow says it feels like something that was always there, but sort of just out of reach. And the magic tells her that it has given this gift to her, and it can only be given to her, but it's not only for her. And it wasn't until Willow went through this journey and faced Rack and faced the Dark Willow that she would be able to appreciate and use this gift as well as it needed to be used. Willow turns around and she's home. The magic tells her, you can take this magic with you, and it's up to you to be responsible for it. It bestows her with the scythe, and it says, go home. And she's so happy because she's going to be with her friends and her loved ones that she's missed for all this time. And the magic tells her, you were missing them when you were still among them. When you were in San Francisco, you weren't happy. Is that still going to be a problem? And Willow says, no, dude, let's go home. And so Willow returns home, and she has this magic within her. And sure, the whole world doesn't have magic, but Willow is now in the world, and she is the kind of human embodiment of magic for us, once again. And everywhere she goes, the inspiration is coming back into the world. And we see this little kid that we left at the beginning of this book, and he didn't have anything to color, but now he's inspired again. And he starts drawing with a sidewalk chalk. And that's where we end the issue. And so I said that Willow's journey was about it being okay to go home, and that's really what I feel like the most important thing here is. Willow has been, since season 6, really battling with herself, battling with these two different sides of herself, but they are herself, and she is herself. She can't stop being herself.
How am I not myself?
How am I not myself? How am I not myself?
How am I not myself? How am I not myself?
Magic isn't something that you can just go and get. It's something that you have to have. Like happiness. Willow equates this magic with her happiness, and happiness isn't something that you can go and get. It's not available at the store. It's not a drug. It's not something that is given over the counter. You can't barter and trade for happiness. You have to decide that you're going to be happy. And it took Willow going on this journey to realize that she could have been happy this whole time. And when she realizes that, she's able to get that happiness, to have that magic, and use that for others. Because she says it herself, if she had just gotten this magic and come back to Earth, she would have been just like Rack. But understanding the distinction between the two sides of herself, and that there isn't one, is what allows for her to really take herself back, to take her power back, and accept herself. Because what this is all about is self-acceptance. She can't pick and choose the different parts of herself that she likes. She can just be herself as well as she can, and that means a lot of different things. It doesn't mean one thing. power is a really big theme within the Buffyverse for all of the characters. And Buffy, she's got this power, and she is the only one who has it. But she, just like Willow, shares that power. And in that respect, Buffy and Willow are finally on the same level, really. Buffy shared her power with all of these women in the world, and now Willow is the only one with this magic, and it's up to her to share that and not hoard it for herself like a Rack would have done. And in that respect, Buffy and Willow are both in the same boat right now. Buffy is, for all intents and purposes, the vampire slayer again, because we have all of these girls in the world who are not calling themselves slayers anymore, and it's up to Buffy now. And now it's really up to Willow to bring inspiration and life back into the world and do that on a one-on-one level, like Buffy is having to do. Because again, this is something that Willow had to discover within herself, and this body of magic that Willow goes into, you could argue that she's only going into herself. These answers can only come from within, and when she's in this body of magic, you can imagine that she's really, really delving into herself and coming to these greater spiritual realizations, because she's finally accepted the myriad parts of herself as just that, as being inevitable. There's no one way to use power. It's just power. And Willow's got the power. And this whole story is kind of like, how am I not myself? She's having this I Heart Huckabees thing in her head of, how am I not myself? If this magic is how I identify, what am I without it? And the answer is, you have it. Like, you've got the magic in you all along. You just needed to believe in yourself and trust yourself enough to come to this realization. And one of my arguments that I made when I did my Buffy, Willow, the Seed and the Scythe video was that magic in the Buffyverse can be seen as color. There's not just white and black. And when we open up this book, Willow realizes that there are only two colors in this rainbow, and that's not true. Willow, again, she can't have two sides of herself. She has to be everything in between. That relationship between all of the different parts of herself is where she is. And so this idea that she wasn't herself, it was all in her head. And now that she, again, has come to this, she is able to appreciate all of the different colors of herself, not just the extreme versions. And that's Willow Wonderland. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today, but today is actually Buffy's birthday, so we are going to explore the secret language of birthdays and see what it has to say about Buffy, what her birthday is supposed to say about her personality, right? So stay tuned for that. I'm Preston L. Young. I hope you're having a great 2016 so far. Come right back here to the Buffington Post anytime for Buffy the Vampire Slayer reviews, Angel and Faith reviews, Buffyverse discussions on the other Slayers, and more. Go back and check out Season 8 if you aren't caught up, and we will be continuing Season 9 with Angel and Faith number 15, I believe. It's the hero of his own story. So stay tuned for that. Have a great day today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, then you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn moon. For whether we are white or copper-skinned, we need to sing with all the voices of the mountain. Need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth, and still all you'll own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
I love this joke.